because Raheem Sterling, Adam Lallana and Jake Livermore from Claire's team will all take their place in the squad tomorrow evening. Well, they're taking their place in it today. Let's look at Lallana first, because he's from your old club, Southampton. Well, they're your constant club, aren't they?
Yes.
Talk us through it, because he's the skipper of the Saints.
Yeah.
Good young player.
Very good, very good. Unbelievable brain, very comfortable, both feet.
When you say unbelievable brain,
Sees pictures
just explain
very
what
early.
you mean to people.
Well, because he's only slight, and he's always been that way, that he has such good balance, but he puts himself into situations where he makes himself favourite. He finds spaces, he can drop the ball off, he can turn sort of standing still into running with the ball within 2 yards. So he's got that initial getting away. The one thing that against him is he hasn't got electric pace. So in order to overcompensate with that, his touch is very good. He plays the ball off in one. He gets into the box. He's technically gifted, but I just wonder, it's a reward for him. If you ask me, hand on heart, he's not an international player yet.
You're nodding.
I just think it's important for these young players to be exposed to the, you know, the dressing room banter, the high fives, the team talks, the halftime reaction, everything about preparing for a game and reacting to what's in front of you. I think it's really important that these players have a chance to be exposed at the highest level.
I'd go a stage further and say I think that it's important to show that the system works. I don't like the idea of, if we have three vacancies in the squad, you go and call up the same old players, the same old tired faces from before. Like you say, reward young players for their endeavours early in the season. Adam Lallana's got off to a great start for Southampton. Get him in.
Yes.
So too
it's
Raheem
no surprise.
Sterling. So too
absolutely
Jake
no surprise that he has been called up at some stage, because Ray Lewington used to be at nearly every Southampton game when he possibly could, but when he was at Fulham, because Fulham was so close to putting a bigger offer in for him about 18 months ago.
Really?
Yeah. So again,
give us a story behind that. You
well,
know,
basically,
basically,
I used to obviously go to a lot of games, and obviously I knew Ray, and he'd asked me what I thought. Yeah, Ray Lewington. Yeah, and I asked me what I thought of Adam, because I'd see him week in, week out, and there was question marks, because obviously we were talking in Division 3, obviously League 1, Division 3, then they went out into the Championship, and he continued growing. Now he's got the captain's armband, and he always had something, and he could score goals, he could lay goals on, and he was a team man, and he hasn't got a position. You ask 10 people where he plays, and they'll give you 10 different answers.
I'm asking you, where does he play?
He plays in the Cleverley role for me.
Number 10.
Fabregas.
No, yeah.
Don't you start.
Yeah, I mean, that's so chalk and cheese, isn't it? It's unbelievable.
The interesting thing I also realised, the key thing for the rest of the talent in the Premiership is not to feel like there's a barrier to entry to this England squad. They really need to feel that, as you say, the system works, but also there are opportunities, and put in a good shift this season, they may just be rewarded with an international call-up at the end of it. And, you know, they really need to feel that there's gaps opening up.
Well, one man who's been rewarded has been Raheem Sterling. An electrifying start to the season for him at Liverpool. Really champed at the bit to get into the side under Kenny Dalglish and didn't succeed. And I know that there was a real possibility of him leaving Liverpool because he was so frustrated. But under Brendan Rodgers, he's been given his head and he's really responded.
Sure, and it's all about, you know, the age-old tradition of different manager, different views. You can get your opportunity if you're patient enough. And there's been some amazing endorsement from Steven Gerrard, who sings this lad's praises day and night. And just to have that surge of confidence, knowing that the England captain and the club captain really believed in your talent, I'm not surprised at all that this call-up has happened. You
assess him for me. How do you see him? How has he grabbed you since he started in the side? Only 5 appearances this season. Only
5 appearances, but he's dynamic. He's exciting. You know, every one of us as a supporter wants to see players with something a little bit special, a little bit different. Can you change a game? Do you have the athleticism and presence that will really allow you to go on and become a real stalwart player in the Premiership? And he's a real talent.
We like players who can go past people, who've got a trick, who can basically turn on. Does
he not remind you of anybody when he was 17? He's Theo Walcott all over again.
He's a pacey guy.
Yeah, he is Theo, and hopefully he'll learn from Theo's deficiencies, and go on, because he's seen
I
someone.
think you're a bit harsh on Theo there. I'm a
No,
big
because
Theo
Theo
fan.
has got. I'm a
with
Theo fan. I'm a Theo fan.
You agreeing with
I am
Flash?
not a Theo fan. He's totally
But when
underachieved in his
8
time.
goals and 10 assists last season, and that's overachieved. He's got a better
because
record.
of his quality, because of what we say.
Having that.
Well, what would you say?
He's got a better record, goals and assists, than Adam Johnson, Aaron Lennon. We still hype these players
Yeah,
up.
I would have Theo before Aaron Lennon or Adam Johnson.
Look
but
how
we still-
long.
Listen, Adam Johnson's just gone to Sunderland for £10 million.
Yeah.
Listen, let's not get on to price figures for players, please.
The strange thing
Ganging
is,
up on
if
me,
you think about how long Walcott's been around versus the statistic that you just mentioned, look how many seasons it's taken him for you to be able to quote a statistic like that.
Yeah, but you
This
see,
is
the problem I have with that, Claire, is that in this country, because he was so young when he left Southampton and went to Arsenal, everybody thinks he's been around forever.
Sure.
You've got to give players time to develop. He's younger than Cleverley, and we've been raving about Cleverley. Why are we being unfair to Theo Walker? I'm not buying that, but I'm not allowed to talk about it for too long now,
but
because
let's
we've got to move on.
let's not get too carried away with Raheem Sterling, because we could also be coming into the season and say, oh, didn't he play in the first 5 games? Why not see him again?
True.
Okay, so let's not build him up too much too early.
No, I agree with you on that. Let's move on to Jake Livermore, because he's from your team. You've been big smile now because we're going to do Spurs, but Jake Livermore has earned his place. He's done really well over the last couple of seasons, Europa League, Premier League, and hopefully, well, he would have hoped Champions League, but it wasn't to be this time around. But he is in the international squad, and well deserved.
Very much so, and Harry did a great job with him last season. He gave him the European experience, as much as it pains me to say that we're not going to be competing at the highest level on the continent this year, but he came on in leaps and bounds. His physicality, his presence, he really does have great presence. He's not frightened to put in a crunching two-footed tackle, and it's a fair one, and his timing's excellent. And
Is
he
there
also,
such a thing anymore?
well, supposedly not, but he's a great winner of the ball, and his distribution improved every game, and he has an excellent understanding with Kyle Walker.
Let's bring in Ben Pearce from the Hornsey Journal into the debate, because he will have seen a lot of Jake Livermore over the last couple of seasons. He really has impressed, as Claire was saying, for Spurs under the tutelage of Harry Redknapp. Evening, Ben.
Hi there, how are you doing?
Very well indeed. Now, tell us your reaction to Jake Livermore being called up to the international squad.
Yeah, I think it's fair enough, really. If you're looking for younger players who are going to come through and suit some of the positions that England need, then I think he's possibly one of the names in the frame, certainly, to be a holding midfielder of the future. He's 22 years old, and if you're looking for, obviously Scott Parker hasn't always been an England regular. He's come into it fairly late. But if you're looking for the next Scott Parker and the next kind of person who's going to sit in front of that defence, and you're looking for the fresh blood who's coming through, he's probably one of the people who's going to be looking to stake a claim for that.
Ben, did you think that Harry Redknapp and Kevin Bond thought about Jake Livermore, or do you think he surprised them?
I think probably he did surprise them. I mean, if you look at what Spurs have done with their young players in the loan system, you look at what they did with Kyle Walker, who was on loan at QPR, and then because he did well in the Championship, they loaned him out to Villa. He did well there. Stephen Colker again had a season on loan in the Premier League before they've really considered him at Spurs now. And they're doing the same with Harry Kane now. He's going to have some time with Norwich, and they'll see how he copes there before picking him in the Premier League for Spurs. But Jake Livermore didn't really do any of that. He was at Derby and then Peterborough, then Ipswich and Leeds, and you never really heard any fans from those clubs all saying, this guy could definitely cast in the Premier League. He's way too good for the Championship. He's close to being England potential. I think it would be an exaggeration to say he really lit up the Championship, but then this time last season, Spurs, I think they just found themselves short in central midfield. Loaned Jenas to Villa. Sandro's never really fit, which they weren't counting on, and Huddleston, I think they were expecting to be fit all of last season. He barely played a game, so. At the start of last season, Modric acting up as well, they suddenly found they were really, really short of options, and whereas they probably would have looked at loaning Livermore out again, possibly back to the Championship, they suddenly had to throw him in, really. They chucked him in at the deep end at Old Trafford. He did fine there and never really looked back, and ended up playing 38 games last season. So I think they probably would have been a little bit concerned about the fact that they needed to rely on him, but he really stepped up to the plate and proved that he could handle it. And 1 year later, he's now in the England squad.
And that consistency was so important to us last year, albeit in the last few weeks, those crucial weeks, we unfortunately saw an unfortunate demise. Yeah, we bottled it, echoing back to Tim Flowers back in the day. We didn't have enough bottle. What do you think Livermore's saying to himself tonight ahead of tomorrow? Do you think he's already identified his mentor within the squad and really looking to see what he can learn from the experience?
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. I think hopefully, from Spurs' perspective, it's great for them that he's going to be able to have the experience to play alongside, the kind of players who are in the England camp at the moment. And I mentioned Scott Parker earlier. I think he's exactly the kind of player he's trying to model himself on. And we spoke to him last season actually, and kind of said, how much do you learn from players like Sandro, like Scott Parker, who's obviously a bit more experienced. Sandro and Parker probably play relatively similar roles. And also people like Modric, and we said, how much are you trying to model yourself on each of those players? And he kind of joked that if he could put all three together, he wouldn't be a bad player. And I'm not sure he's too close to being Luka Modric, but if he can become the new Scott Parker for Spurs and England, then that's exactly what club and country will be looking for.
No pressure there then, Ben.
What's that, sorry?
No pressure there then.
No. I think that's absolutely. You're right. It's probably unfair to start chucking those names around and putting that kind of pressure on his shoulders. But that said, given what he did last season, there were times when he was certainly looking fitter than Parker towards the end of the season. I think Parker faded relatively badly towards the end of the season, and that's one of the reasons why Spurs fell away. But Livermore his consistency didn't really drop, and obviously he's got the advantage of being a lot younger. Ben, I think he really kept it going.
One last question, Ben, very quickly. Do you expect him to come on tomorrow night?
I don't know really. It's difficult to say. He came on for the last 20 minutes against Italy, didn't he? So it just depends on what the manager wants, and probably the situation of the game. And if they're doing well, then I guess it's a good time to bring young players on. If he feels he needs a result, then he'll put. Then he might keep it as it is and go for the results instead.
Ben, as usual, thanks for coming on.
No problem at all, my pleasure.
Ben Pearce from the Hornsey Journal talking about Jake Livermore's inclusion into the England international side that faces Ukraine tomorrow evening.